Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our writing webinar. Very exciting to welcome our expert panel. We're coming to you live from Digital Regenesys, and this topic of communication in the workplace is so important, and we're thrilled to have been able to get these experts together to give you lots of value and insights about how you can write better, communicate better, your career, your ability to run a business, and to be successful in the world today really does depend ever more on effective communication. As we come out of a pandemic and we've learned the importance of clear and concise communication in an increasingly digital and connected world, we've all seen the pitfalls of bad and poor communication, and we've all seen the benefits of getting communication right. So we're thrilled to be able to deal with these sort of topics this morning. And I'm thrilled to welcome you all. And the first thing I'd like you to do is just to introduce yourself in the chat. Make sure that you let us know where you're from and what your specific interest is in better business writing. And of course, what specific questions you might have for our panel today, so that we can put them in the hot seat and make sure that your questions are answered. So just by way of introduction, my name is Peter Alkemer. And I'm thrilled to have with me this morning Santosh, Masindi, James, and Videhi. So to start off with, I'm going to ask everybody just to introduce themselves. So let's just go around in order as I've got them up there on the screen. So to you, Santosh, give us a bit of a background, your interest and expertise in business writing.
Hi, everybody. My name is Santosh Nair. I come on board with 27 plus years of experience. It's been predominantly in banking and financial services. I'm presently with Regenesys as a general manager. Also take care of academics by facilitating some courses there. So my experience in business writing is that I have some business reports or business plans and strategic plans. Those are stuff that I come on. That I have my experience in. So that's my area of expertise. Thank you so much. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you, Santosh, and welcome. Looking forward to your insights today on our live webinar. Masindi, over to you.
Hi, Peter. Thank you firstly for inviting me to be part of this discussion on a subject matter that certainly is, of importance to people such as myself, and I believe everyone else on the panel. So by way of introduction, my name is Masindi, as you said, and I'm a copywriter here at Regenesys Business School. So I'm essentially in the business of writing. I have a strong background in writing and a passion for it. And my experience in business writing has been sort of in the space of digital marketing, corporate communications, and PR, and also journalism. So I've had my fair share of writing all kinds of content and just dealing with the different types of communication that we have, written communication. So I'm pleased to be on this panel. I hope we can obviously derive value from this discussion, and that people who are participating get to realize the need for professional business writing skills because of the value that it drives for business. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Masindi. And copywriting is such an important area of business writing, and I'm keen to get your insights and understand your valuable experience and expertise on that topic as we go through our panel discussion this morning. So a very warm welcome, Masindi. James, over to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm James Forson. I'm the Vice President looking after strategic relations at Regenesys. Before I joined Regenesys, I spent about 27 years as a management consultant. So I have had lots of experience of writing reports and seeing what goes wrong at firsthand, right up front, close and personal. And that's a steep learning curve to go through. In addition to my normal activities at Regenesys, I also contribute a weekly thought leadership article to Digital Regenesys, our online blog, and I'm sure many of you have already seen some things of value over there.
Brilliant, James. Thank you very much. And absolutely, that blog is a wonderful source of insights, lots of fantastic articles there. And in fact, James has written a thought leadership article about business writing, specifically related to some of the things we'll talk about this morning in our webinar. So James, thank you very much for your contribution and participation with us this morning. Videhi, over to you.
Thank you, Peter, and to all my colleagues here on the panel. A very good morning, good afternoon to you all. I'm Vaidehi Banerjee, and it's an honor for me to be here along with you all to discuss something which is, I would say, very, very close to my heart. In fact, when Masindi said that she's a copywriter, it took me back 25 years when I started my career as a copywriter with an ad agency. And from there, for the last 19 years, I've been into academics. And I don't like to use the word teach because it sounds very top down, but yes, I do conduct sessions on business communication skills, soft skills, try and help students in their professional communication. So I love writing, and it's very close to my heart. I like writing, and I think it's very important, like Cindy said, that it's quite important that all of us learn to write. Not only just writing the words, but meaning what you say and expressing what you are thinking is very, very important. And that's a very important topic for us for today. So thank you for having me here. I look forward to a nice discussion.
Super. Thank you very much, Videhi. Right. So let's get into our discussion this morning. And a very warm welcome to Les, a good friend of mine. Thank you for joining us this morning, Les. Les, and anybody else that's joining us as you're coming online, stepping off from your previous meeting. Just a reminder to introduce yourself in the chat and ask any questions that you have about business writing. Les, I'd love to hear your insights about business writing and any specific questions that you have. As somebody that's an expert in sales and training salespeople, I'm sure that you can attest to the importance of business writing. I would love to hear any questions that you've got, Les, and of course, everyone else in the discussion this morning. Right, so let's get into a couple of questions that I've got and that I'd just love to find out about from our expert panel. So we've heard lots of experience, that we've got today, but I'm just keen to understand, let's go to the root of it. Let's just really understand why is business writing actually important. So Cindy, do you want to just dive in on this topic? You spoke about how you're a copywriter and you spent many years in this area of writing. It's close to your heart, but why? Just unpack for us a little bit, and especially in 2022, as we talk about equipping leaders for success in the business world, through a lot of the training programs that we offer here at Digital Regenesys. Why does writing play an important role in leadership in the workplace?
All right. Thank you, Peter. So I think as a start, just for the purpose of making anyone who's here and possibly is not very clear on what we mean by business writing, I'll just give an explanation of what we refer to when we speak about business writing. So it's the style of writing that is used in the business environment, in the professional setting by all professionals. And it applies to everyone, from the top, from seasoned executives, employees, independent consultants. Everyone needs business writing skills to empower their ability to communicate effectively, whether in the corporate environment or the small business space, or you're working independently as a freelancer. Anyone can become more proficient and effective of a writer. And it's much like how I think when you're a student and in the pursuit of your qualification, you definitely need academic writing skills to help you to excel and be effective in your academics, right? And then you go on to become a professional and you adapt to the writing style required for that environment. And you use business writing skills to make you more effective in the area of business. And then now, just to get into your question, Peter, when we speak about the importance of business writing, I think that firstly, many people, I think, often underestimate the power of written communication skills in the workplace and for business. You can certainly have the ability to communicate effectively orally, but that doesn't necessarily translate to having an equal ability to effectively communicate in writing. And for me, I think that, as a standard, it's actually just good business practice and professional conduct, to communicate well in writing with your colleagues and clients and whatever stakeholders, you know. Um, Business correspondence is always taking place, within an organization, between organizations, and between organizations and clients. So these skills are very much important. And also, the reality is that in the workplace, I think we spend a lot of time either writing or reading. And that goes to show that, writing is actually a big and important part of our work life, And I think you touched on how we've been facing a pandemic. I think that also applies to this discussion in the sense that, since the COVID pandemic, face-to-face interactions have sort of dwindled, and therefore the need for writing has become more vital than ever. So we do a lot of writing in the workplace, and we really need to get it right. We need to sharpen our business writing skills. So I think that's one of the things that you could say is important with regards to business writing. Yeah.
Great, Masindi. And I think just what's so important there that you were talking about the difference between academic writing in a sort of a university or a learning context or a research context potentially, and then business writing for specifically the workplace. And, the important point that you mentioned there was communicating for your environment and adopting the style of writing or communicating that people in that environment already use. And that is so important. I've taught courses on academic writing, and it is slightly different. And you use a slightly different style of writing for research papers and assignments in an academic context versus the business context. So, Masindi, thank you for your valuable insights there, and looking forward to getting into a little bit more discussion shortly. Videhi, let's bring you in here, and just keen to get your insights as well on why business writing is important, and like Masindi has done, perhaps touch on what exactly business writing is, so that we really just set the right sort of context for people to understand its relevance and importance.
Okay, thank you, Peter. And taking off from where Cindy she just spoke, the first thing that I'd like to say is that more often than not, we say first impression is the last impression, but I'd like to tweak it and say the first impression is the lasting impression. So more often than not, our business writing, or what we write, especially in a business environment or a corporate environment, is the first thing that the person at the other end sees. Could be a client, could be an employee, could be a customer, a vendor. So very often they tend to make a mental picture of who you are and what you represent through your writing. Hence, it becomes very important that you portray the right picture, the right image to the person on the other end who's reading. And the second point is that unlike our verbal communication or non-verbal communication, the feedback isn't instant. Okay, in a written communication, when the feedback isn't instant, you have to be careful, because when we are speaking and there is a reaction from the other person, we can immediately tweak our communication or change the words or change the tone. But we can't do that when we are writing something and it is, you hit the send button. So I think hence it has to be, very important that we understand what we are writing, what we are communicating, and what kind of a message it is going to take across to the other person. Because in business writing, it is not just saying the words; it is you have to connect with the reader. Whether you take it to, like you say, call the bestsellers across the world, the reason we read them is because we connect with that. There is some kind of, it hooks you. So similarly, your business writing as well, whether it is a transactional writing or whether it is just instructional writing or persuasive writing, it still has to hook the reader. So, you have to connect with the reader with your words. So you have to ensure that you have to keep in mind that many times the readers would be across different time zones, different time of the day, different environment. Could be even, the mental space, kind of upset, tired during the day, or different moods. So when you write, you have to keep into consideration all these aspects, which the other, your verbal and non-verbal communication does not really take into account. It goes very automatically. Um, and when you are communicating through your business communication, when you're speaking, or when you're writing, sorry, you have to understand the reader. The reader is more important. It's not just what you want to communicate, it is what you want the reader to understand. So I could be saying very important things using a lot of complex words, which will just bounce off the reader and he or she may ignore it. That's not something that you want. You have to connect. So, like when Cindy, as a copywriter, I'm sure she would agree, or even when I used to be a copywriter, we had to ensure that if we are speaking to an audience who is the customer for buying fertilizers, we have to use that kind of a language. We have to use that kind of vocabulary or that kind of syntax where the person connects. So, which is why business writing or copywriting is, according to me, quite important for all of us. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Videhi. Just wonderful insights there. And what I found so fascinating was how you touched on the importance of the reader and connecting with your reader. So Cindy talked about the broader environment and the style of communicating and writing. And then you reminded us very importantly that when you're writing and you think about the communication process, you're putting words on a paper or up onto a screen or in a presentation or in a report. The only way that's going to have value if you can connect with the reader of those words and your writing. So it was really great there for you to just bring in the other person that you're communicating with through writing. So important that we keep that in mind as well. Guys, let's take a question from our audience. So Ashley's just asked about Harvard referencing in business writing or any other writing. So I don't know whether any of our panelists want to pick up this idea of referencing. Now that's quite relevant in an academic context, but in a business context, do any of you have any experience with regards to using the Harvard referencing system in a business context? And maybe can help Ashley out with their question.
Yeah, if I could come in here and just put my toe in the water around this conversation. That's a loaded question there, Ashley, and I can see you're a student, so I know exactly why you're saying this over here. And this is the bane of every student's life, is getting the citations, the references, the bibliographies, the commas, the full stops, the ampersands, the brackets in place over there. And that is really, it's a pain in the neck. Now, two ways of answering is obviously Harvard is just one of the formatting styles over there. There's Chicago, there's the APA, and a number of other ones over there, and they're all pernickety and they're all a pain in the neck. There are two ways of going about this. One is to actually read up the actual guidelines for doing it in a particular format. But there's a sneaky trick around this as well too, is to there are a number of applications around apps, and we use them quite frequently which once you've got the DOI number of the particular article or the document or the book you're doing, you put this into this app. It then brings out all the details about the publisher, data, publication, and then you have the opportunity to be able to put it into Harvard or Chicago or APA, any one of those formats, put it into your document, and it is done with all the commas and the brackets and the colons and all the things in the right place over there. Because especially if you're doing advanced study, it can get massive. When you've got 300 or 400 references and citations inside the text, it is painful over there. So my short answer to you is get a number of apps over there, and I think after the show we can tell you where to go for these things. And it makes just life a lot easier, because you want to do the work of your studies. You don't want to get involved in the typing and desktop publishing aspects of putting in the citations there. I hope that covers that comment.
Thanks, James. Absolutely appreciated that. And coincidentally, I also teach an online course on how to do referencing with EndNote and Microsoft Word. So what James was talking about there, EndNote is one of those applications that you can use to store all of your references, and that gives you the facility to select any one of the referencing systems like Harvard. And if you've enabled the plugin to Word, where you're actually writing your report to your assignment, then the application and the plugin to Word takes care of how that citation and the list of references at the end of your report, your assignment, is then formatted and ensures that it's done according to the requirements of your faculty or whatever referencing system you're actually using. James, let's stick with you, and let's dive into then some of the things that go wrong with business writing and when people are not communicating well. So just in your decades of experience and your leadership position that you're in at the moment, give us some of those scary challenges that we have with business writing, and maybe recount for us a couple of the experiences that you've had where you've seen writing go terribly wrong, where people miss out on context or culture, or they miss the barriers, or they put the comma in the wrong place or use the wrong word. Maybe English is not their first language, etc. But just give us some of those insights, James.
Yes, let me drop something in the room right over here. Your writing has to speak for you when you are not in the room. Because if we talk to each other, you can read the body language, you can modify, when your document is being discussed in a boardroom or in a meeting and you're not there, you can't defend it, you can't explain it. And that's why it's so important to have things crystally clear and to expand a bit more on what you're actually trying to say, because we tend to write the way we speak in shorthand, and we leave out information which we think the other person has, which we don't have. So the all sorts of things that can get in the way. First, of course, and then Vaidehi spelled this out very nicely early on, is if there are spelling mistakes, there are grammar mistakes, you've got a singular noun and a plural verb or something like that, that just upsets the person reading it over there. They're not going to get the message there, because your writing has got to do two things. It's either got to inform or it's got to persuade. And if you haven't put it together in the way that they can actually get the persuasion or the information to act on, you're not going to get the quiet response to this. They're going to go and say, wow, what does this mean over here? How can you say this over here? And I'm not understanding what it is. So you can, for instance, I've seen lovely examples, I've been right firsthand in this, where you supervising a team of people on a project, and you've got engineers and you've got accountants. Now, just because they look like friendly people doesn't mean they live in the same universe. The words, the vocabulary they use, when an engineer talks about a contract, it means something in practice quite different from someone in the legal profession around that. And so you have to make sure that your terminology used is acceptable and understandable to each person in the audience. So you can have also being able to address people at the appropriate level of intimacy. If it's a formal letter to a CEO, you're going to be a little bit, more restrained and more formal about how you approach this. Is going to be dear Ms. So-and-so, or addressing the person by their surname rather than their first name. Whereas sometimes, because we live in this very informal world, people just buzz through, hi James, how's things going over here? And the person will take umbrage at that, and your opportunity to persuade, your opportunity to inform is lost in the process. And we do this so nicely on the course over here, where you actually clarify exactly what it is you want your end state to do. Because when we are writing, we've got things in our head over here, which we want to do, but we put them on paper and we think that what's in our head is actually sitting on the paper, but the person reading it doesn't get the same thing that's in my head. And that is something which is terribly difficult to manage over there. And you learn that through knowing your audience and being able to get the right message across and proofreading it several times. And even sometimes when it's a very difficult document that you're putting together, where you're looking for particular insights and nuances, you're dealing with emotional issues, you're trying to persuade, you're trying to deal with people's self-esteem, you've got to phrase it in a way that they will actually get the message that's in your head and not respond to the words there, because the only thing they've got in front is the words in front of them. And as we can see on the screen right now, it summarizes beautifully. It's in the course there. It's for every look. The written message may not be received and interpreted exactly the way the sender intended. And that is a big bugbear in successful business writing. Because if you don't get that right, you're not going to get the action, the behavior, the response you want, and it's been a waste of time. I'm going to leave it there. I'm sure the other colleagues will take this to further detail and further depth.
Thank you, James. Appreciate that. And yes, as you indicated, just sharing a couple of the lessons from inside the online course, which I've made available in the chat, and there's limited free access. So take advantage of that today by enrolling in our brand new online course to learn business writing. And you can see there, for example, one of the barriers to successful communication is language. So perhaps let's talk about the barriers to effective communication. So perhaps, Masindi, you want to jump in there. You mentioned, in your introduction, these are some of the things that you're quite passionate about. And I'll just jump around here. There's things like cultural barriers that we obviously go to in a lot more detail in the course as well. So James has explained to us, the reason and the importance for effective written communication, because it's those words on a page that are there after you've left the room. But perhaps, Masindi, you can pick up on some of these sort of cultural or contextual barriers that creep in, especially in a vibrant, diverse society like ours. Masindi.
Sure, Peter, thank you. I think I'll just expand on what James was saying. He talked about how the written message may not be received as intended. Obviously, communication problems and misunderstandings can occur as a result of bad writing, right? So those who are not able to write clearly can wind up sending the wrong message simply because grammar and syntax problems can change the meaning of what is trying to be said, and the person on the receiving end of the communication may receive a completely different understanding of the message. So choosing the right words and using proper grammar and employing the rules of language and grammar can greatly can negate the possibility of misunderstandings. Now, of course, we are human, we're bound to make errors, but certain careless mistakes give the impression that you don't care enough to double check your writing, and this often breaks trust with stakeholders. So if I were to give an example, let's say there's a badly written annual report which has lots of mistakes. That obviously is not a good look for a company, and it certainly would scare off investors. I think also we can make an example with a press release. Let's say there's a press release that contains information that is factually incorrect. That's something that can definitely bring your company into disrepute, and it just creates a buildup of unnecessary stress in terms of damage control and crisis communication, and there's a cost implication of that as well on the company. So in order to create or to establish credibility and trustworthiness, each piece of writing must be well thought out. It must be well written, because clear writing has the ability to create trust. So if a person can easily digest the content of whatever piece of writing, then they're likely going to assume that you know what you're talking about, and they're going to develop a sense of trust, which will most likely take them to a point of performing the required action as a result of the effective communication. And I think also generally poor writing leaves people feeling rather uncertain. And when people are uncertain, they can be thrown off. So they fail to act, or they act incorrectly. So these actions can cause your business to lose a lot of money ultimately. So it can't be stressed enough why business writing skills are essential. I mean, there's an interesting stat that I was reading, that American businesses lose almost like $400 billion every year due to poor writing. And I suppose the lesson here is that, if you don't want your business to lose money, you need to improve your business writing skills, because it certainly has a lot of implications. And just another thing, I think that, good business writing improves, it not improves, but rather it gives your company credibility. And what does credibility do? I think that in the bigger scheme of things, it affects the bottom line. And I think that, every business owner and every company out there desires to be seen as credible. And so business writing has the power to inspire confidence in your brand. And that's the power of the written word. In fact, I think the efficacy of words cannot be undermined. And so it matters how you use words, in the context that you use it in, and how effectively you can do so. Because poor writing leads to misunderstandings, like I said. But yeah, so it's certainly really important to pay heed to business writing skills, because a lot can go wrong, and there's just ramifications that obviously are unwelcome as a result.
Cindy, thank you. And I wanted to pick up on two very important words that you mentioned in that stunning overview of the importance of overcoming barriers to effective communication. The one word was credibility, and the other word was trust. And I think in the business world today, as individuals or business owners, as executives, as leaders, credibility and trust are two critically important things. And if we can develop better business writing habits to support and improve credibility and trust, that's going to add huge value to our careers and to our businesses. Let's bring Santosh in here just to give us a little bit of a sense of, building on the importance of establishing trustworthy and credibility. And perhaps Santosh just, touching on some of the fantastic and valuable lessons that we've created for everybody in the course. Give us a sense from your perspective of how business writing fits in with this idea of leadership in the workplace, and how, on the one hand, yes, we need to create and maintain credibility and trust, but on the other hand, then, businesses also need to be able to drive their vision forward, and writing and communicating and doing that effectively within their own organization and within the broader industry, all is critically important and depends on effective and high quality professional business writing. Santosh, over to you to sketch the relationship between business writing and effective leadership.
Thank you so much, Peter. So when it comes to business writing and effective leadership, this thing that people tend to understand or tend to forget is that leadership is, while they do a lot of other activities, the critical thing which people do not understand is leaders have to communicate effectively. So communication can be at times verbal, it can be at times writing. So if you look around the various scheme of activity that a leader is supposed to do, you will find that the leader has to speak, convey the vision, the mission of an organization effectively to the audience, not just to the people inside, or also to the people outside of the organization. So that's where the leader's ability to communicate effectively comes in. And so therefore, a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of capability or competence in both speaking and writing, both the aspects of communication, will immensely help anybody who is already at the level of leadership or is on the way or aspiring for a leadership role. I can tell you one example. I'm not sure how many people have heard about this company called Armstrong International. There is this person who is the CEO of that, David Armstrong. He has created a unique way of communication. He says that management by storytelling. So how does he communicate with his audience, both within and without the organization, which is Armstrong International? Is that he narrates stories. He, for every aspect of a vision that he has for the company, if there is a strategic move that they want to make, he conveys that using some story which is woven around that particular aspect of management or that particular aspect of strategy, and then using that as a medium tries to motivate and tries to inspire people. So that is David Armstrong's way of communicating his vision, communicating his idea effectively. So various leaders have various way of approach when they engage their audience both within the organization and outside the organization. So it's very critical that people understand the importance of business writing, and not just about business writing. I'm also emphasizing on communication, which means it includes both writing as well as speaking. But there are times when some people are very comfortable writing because it's behind the camera, but there are some who are very conscious about themselves being in front of the camera, in front of the crowd while they communicate. So one needs to balance that. So I think that is my perspective um, on business writing or effective speaking from a leadership standpoint. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you, Santosh. Appreciate that. And just previewing a couple of the lessons in the course as well, because what I'm sketching there on the overview lesson inside the course is really that journey that you want to go on as you seek to establish yourself as a better business writer. You're really increasing your impact and your effectiveness as a leader in the organization. And I think it talks so powerfully to the example that you gave of Armstrong, and the importance of making the connection between the credibility and the trustworthiness that we spoke about, the relevance of your writing in the environment and the connection that you have with the reader, and the skills and the techniques that you need to develop as a better business writer. So Videhi, maybe just building then on a couple of the topics we've been talking about just now, and I think diving now into those skills and the techniques that people can get, a lot of which hopefully they've learned from attending this webinar today, but which they can get full access to in the course, and over 6 hours of lessons, as we've seen there, going through different formats and correspondence, and methods and styles of business writing in the workplace today. Videhi, just your thoughts on the importance of spending time and investing effort in becoming a better business writer to increase your skills as a leader in the workplace, and possibly touching on the course that we've made available today and how everybody can use that to become a better leader and have more success in the workplace. Videhi.
Okay. Thank you, Peter, for that. Speaking of leaders, like Santosh spoke about Armstrong, we all know that leaders have great communication skills, and that may not be the only thing that makes them leaders, but definitely it's very important and very critical to have good communication skills, and writing being a very important aspect of that. Simply, even when if you're writing down the vision of an organization or the mission, um, it is a big responsibility, because you are writing things to your team members. You're writing things to the people within the organization and outside the organization. And like I said earlier, it has to relate, but more importantly, the words have to communicate in such a way that they believe in that vision. So it can't just be, empty words. So you have each of those words have to have meaning. So they have to have proper connotation, and they have to exemplify what you believe. So when we speak of leaders, one of the things that we speak is that they are creative, they think out of the box, and they are bold, and they can they are team builders, and they take their team along with them. They believe in success and things like that. But I think the most important thing is that they are unique in what they do. They do not believe in kind of copying or just doing something that's already done. So, and when we speak about uniqueness, Control C or Command C and Command V is not going to cut it. You can't just copy paste content from somewhere else and pass it on as yours. So you have to learn to kind of write your own thoughts, and you have to learn to express those thoughts in such a way that your team believes in it. The people you are writing it to, your team, your the stakeholders, they believe in those words and they can connect with us and say, hey, that's me. Yeah, I agree with that, or I can understand that, or I see myself part of the big picture that the team leader or whoever the organization leader has put it out to us. That is the key to you connecting with your team and making them believe in what you are doing or in what the organization is out to achieve. So you just can't kind of I see nowadays it's very common. I'm sure all of us get these mails as well, where you just find hello FYI and A. So when you just kind of forward it with an FYI and A, for your information and necessary action, that's something I find not um, good communication. Now, you would never find another person at the top of the organization or any person who really is a good leadership skills uh, forward a mail without his or her take or perspective on what is there. So I think when you need to learn to write, whether it's mails, you need to write it in a way that when the person reads it, he or she connects and understand. And it doesn't necessarily have to have big words or complicated words. It has to be explained in a very simple way. The ideas that a leader communicates, it's not what I want to communicate. It's not just what the leader wants to communicate. It is what he or she wants the readers to understand. So if I want, as a leader, I want my team to believe in what I believe or what I see. I think putting it down and using the right words is really important. Structuring the entire mail is equally important. It can't have randomness to it. Like you have one point at the beginning or another point at the end, or connecting unconnected words. No, it can't happen. It has to have a proper flow, content, and it has to be meaningful to the leader. I mean, to the readers who receive the communication. So I think that's pretty important. And yes, I would say that you may definitely develop the skills over the years while you climb the corporate ladder, but it never hurts to have these skills early in your career. So, people notice that you write well, you have the knack to explain things and communicate things well. So it's equally important in a career to have these skills, not when you become a leader, but on the way. So starting itself, you would have the advantage of having good communication skills, and people take notice of it. Thank you, Peter. Over to you.
Thank you, Videhi. Appreciate that insights there. And I'm going to ask Ms. Cindy to comment as well. But just as you were talking, I was sharing a couple of lessons from the course, and you can see how powerful it's going to be for you to enroll in the course and go through the lessons. You can see on the screen there, giving you an example of how to lay out an effective and well-written email, specifically to avoid some of the pitfalls that Videhi was talking about just now. So on the one hand, there's the risk of communication failure and affecting the trustworthiness and the credibility we were talking about just now. But then on the other hand, there's achieving your objectives as a leader within your organization by using tools like emails and reports and other business correspondence, all of which we teach you in the course that will help you, if you master them, to become an effective business communicator. So Videhi, thank you very much for your insights there. And Ms. Cindy, over to you to comment on that and perhaps also touch on other powerful lessons that we've got available in the course for everybody.
Cool. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Videhi, for all that you shared. I think it was definitely very insightful. And I just wanted to add that, the higher you move up the ladder in an organization, the more responsible you become for writing formal documents, from proposals to employee evaluations, annual reports, and all manner of reports. So business writing skills are an absolute must-have and not a nice-to-have for everyone, including leaders. And for me, I think particularly in the leadership function, like I said earlier, oral skills and written communication skills cannot be mutually exclusive. So you can't just be effective in oral communication, yet you lack the fundamental business writing skills. For me, a leader is someone who's an influencer. So you also need to be able to effectively communicate in writing so as to influence people into taking action and, to influence business direction and so forth. And I think one of the key things that help a company to grow and become successful is if leaders communicate effectively, because good communication can encourage investors to invest more, and customers to buy into the products and services, and just everyone else in the supply chain to allow for there to be for everything to be efficient. And that's the power of good communication. And I think that it's really important for anyone and everyone to actually invest in training and getting training on business writing skills, to receive adequate training on professional writing etiquette. And so the beautiful thing about this is that here at Digital Regenesys, we do offer a course on business writing. It's a course on professional business writing skills, where it's a very comprehensive business writing course. And the course teaches you the fundamental communication and writing skills. It covers everything, including communication methods for the workplace, understanding your audience. Vaiday touched on the importance of knowing and understanding your audience earlier, and also includes communication success and failure factors, and also professional writers. And that's just a small list of what this course covers. And it's definitely very beneficial. It can be very beneficial for your career in your job, as it will unleash your writing potential, so to speak. And and also one of the advantages of this course for me is that it's self-paced. So, you have the ability to study at your own convenience. So I just wanted to point out that we have such courses that are out there for people to do and improve their business writing skills. Because, the bad news is not everyone is a skilled writer, but the good news is that, everyone can improve their writing skills. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Masindi. And just to go back to your earlier comments around the link between the written word and the spoken word, we've got a whole section on business presentations, and that's really where you combine the written word with the spoken word and the visualization of key concepts, whether to pitch for business externally or to have meetings and presentations internally. So we really go through that in a lot of detail there in the course. And then your last point there around the importance of going through this type of material at your own pace, and the ease of access that you've now got in the online course that we've made available for a limited number of free seats through the link in the chat that you can take action and go into today. Masindi, I think, just highlighting there the importance that the tools and the learning and the material is there for you to get access to. It's really up to you to take action, and to have learned from our esteemed panel today the importance of writing and communicating effectively in the business world for your advantage, but then to actually go in there and to learn those things and put them to test. And the great thing about the course, and just to add on to what Masindi was saying, in addition to the lessons, and we've previewed a lot of that in our webinar today, there's also actions that you can take, activities, assignments, quizzes. I showed a couple on the screen there just now where, not only are you able to get the reference material and the insights and the workbooks that I showed just now, and the worksheets that you can download and take with you and help you to become a better writer, but then the action that you can take to learn by doing. And we always retain knowledge, the sooner we're able to apply it after that. So as Masindi was saying, great content in the course, a great set of lessons that covers a wide range of writing and communicating in the workplace, but then also lots of opportunities as you go through that course to put those skills and techniques actually into practice. So thank you, Masindi. And we at Digital Regenesys, we're absolutely very proud of this course that we've created. And perhaps let me just bring in James then, just to give us a little bit of the background to the course. James, you, as you said, have decades of experience. And I think this course, originally the content, very much something that you were very passionate about. And then as a team, obviously we pulled it all together, and you'll have seen, the instructions. James, give us a sense of what you were trying to achieve when you had the vision and the foresight for putting a course like this together.
Yeah, and I've just been enthralled looking at those clips you're playing about Robin delivering the course. She's such a skilled and competent communicator. It's pity the sound wasn't on to actually see that out there. That really is a very dynamic and very exciting. But let me get back to the course. This course has a lot of history as it comes from a background, and this Ashley would like this. It started off and still exists as an academic writing course, because obviously Regenesys has students from around the world. They're not necessarily all English first language speakers and writers, and so we do it out. And it's a very good course, and people do that, but it is an academic course. And people were saying, well, can't you just make it a little bit easier? And I'm struggling with this, I need that, etc., etc. So then we started going into how we go into the nuts of helping people to communicate and to write better. And we took some of the original course content, we tried and fitted it together. And of course, it was terrible because it was very clunky, it was very linear, it was very narrowly focused. But fortunately, there's a group of very skilled people at Regenesys, and technology has moved them in, and we flipped the whole thing over, turned it upside down. And the sort of metaphor, the way it works now, is it's like a pond. And on the pond are a series of lily pads. And the little froggy sitting on one side of the pond, and the froggy wants to get to the other side of the pond. Instead of going from lily pad 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, you can jump across whichever lily pad you like. You can go back again, you can go forward, and you can access directly the things that are important for what your problem is now in a sort of just-in-time learning approach. And this has made it so dynamic and so enthralling and captivating, because let's face it, you're not going to wake up in the morning and say, I'm so excited, I want to go on a better writing course over there. It's something we have to do to get us back into writing out. It's not necessarily it's a grudge purchase, but it's something it's not all that exciting. But through the technology, through the interaction, we make the learning almost incidental in terms of the learning experience. So the course content, my colleagues have touched on that very briefly. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of some of the things there, starting with some understanding of communication. I mean, these are all things we know, but it helps to solidify what the communication is there. Then in terms of how you structure and sequence your argument to be able to get your content across. Then we've got some very clever techniques for dealing with the not such fun things like prepositions, parts of speech, grammar, easily confused words, which are quite boring and not very much fun to deal with. And so there are special ways that you can get drills in how to do that without having to fall asleep in the process. Because let's face it, we didn't enjoy it at school and we don't enjoy it now, but this makes it fun and exciting, and you learn incidentally. It's a byproduct of the process over there. Then there's a whole lot of formal stuff in terms of how to write reports, presentations, minutes of meetings. It's such an important part of this, because the written minutes are the record that stands for all time. It helps us to make sure the action is taken after the meeting, but in an uncertain world, it can also be the document of record that goes to a court of law or goes to some other forum for adjudication and dealing with at that level. So being able to capture minutes is appropriate, being able to do presentations, and managing not just typed words. Obviously, most of our communication these days goes through email. Very few people send formal written documents on paper, although there is a need for that in some cases over there. But emails and texting is a very important part of communication. Every organization has its texting groups where information is shared over there, and we touch on some of those processes of how you actually make sure that you're getting the message across, and that if you are using acronyms or abbreviations, that it's all understood inside the organization. So you can start the course right at the beginning and go through it sequentially all the way through, and that's a very acceptable way to do it. Or you can hop in and do little things as you need them. Oops, I'm going to have to write the minutes. Let me go in and have a look about this. I'm going to have to write a very important letter that's going to have to persuade people in the department to undertake action in a different way. So there you go into those things about persuasive writing, etc., etc., etc. So you can use and customize the program to your needs. You can take out of it what you want when you want, and there's no reason why you can't come back in 6 months' time, 2 months' time, or weekly if it takes you over there to dip your fingers in the water and reacquaint yourself with the rules, with the principles, the approaches, the techniques, and the shortcuts. And of course, by the way, I must just mention there's also an excellent section on proofing and editing, because the difference between a good document and a bad document is not in the excellence of the writer, it's in the proofing and editing, and that's what makes it go through over there. So there's lots of exciting stuff over here. There's depth to it, but the learning technology behind this has been on creating fun and creating an exciting learning experience as opposed to a teaching experience. And that's the most important learning out of that.
Wonderful. Thank you, James. And absolutely, you touched on a couple of other features and benefits from the course, such as, learning English grammar, verbs, adjectives and those aspects, the persuasive writing, texting, also a critical form of written communication that didn't exist as much as it does today, just 5 to 10 years ago, and something that we've become very dependent on in the workplace. So appreciate that, James. And as you say, the beauty of the course is that you get access to all those lessons and you can quite easily jump around. The lessons are 4 or 5 minutes each, and you can have a look at the title and really pick whichever one is useful and important for you. But also, by all means, sit down, take the time and go through the whole course, maybe over a couple of days or a couple of weeks. And then once you've got access to it by enrolling in it for free today as a result of this webinar, you can come back at any time in the future and pick up on any of those lessons to get that learning experience and the rich access to the content that we packaged into that course at any time in the future. We're going to wrap up now. We're almost at the end of the hour for our webinar. And Les is saying, thanks, everyone. Load shedding is kicking in. So no problem if you need to drop off there, Les. I think our load shedding has kicked in across Johannesburg this morning. So let's give all our panelists just a minute to say thanks and goodbye. And we'll start with you, Santosh.
Santosh, mute.
Yeah.
Santosh?
Okay.
Santosh?
Yeah, thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So to summarize, I was emphasizing on the aspect of business communication or writing, whether it is speaking or writing, from a leadership perspective. It's important for us to understand that many times when whatever that we learn communication, we learn writing at a very younger age, but by the time we reach the workplace, the technology, everything has moved on. So we need to keep ourselves abreast with the change that is happening. And therefore, these courses, such as what is being run, the Digital Regenesys platform, helps people not only to shape up their communication, and also spruce them personality up. So that's my closing remark. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you, Santosh. Appreciate you being with us today and sharing your valuable time. Masindi.
Thanks, Peter. So I think for me, a closing remark would be that it shouldn't be left to assumption that just because you're employable, you can write. Of course, you have an education, you have a qualification, so you can write somewhat, but it's very much different from having the ability to write effectively. And I think that's where we're missing it. And I think there's an importance in training in that regard. And it's something that companies need to look into. And specifically with regards to our Digital Regenesys course on professional business writing skills, I think that the key takeaway there from this course is that more than anything, your written communication skills will improve significantly and thereby make you more effective in the area of business. You will have better grammar, editing, proofreading skills as well, because you will learn how to write the different types of business correspondence that there are. So over and above, I'm glad we had this discussion. I hope it's been insightful and that people will be encouraged and motivated to actually do something about their business writing skills, because it's very much needed. Thank you.
Thanks, Masindi. Appreciate that. Videhi, over to you, and then James, you'll have the last word.
Thank you, Peter. It was really a very nice discussion, hearing all the perspectives. And to sum it all up, I'd say that it's never too early to start learning how to write, how to use the right words, how to express yourself, express your ideas effectively to the readers. I mean, most people think that, okay, I'll do it later in my career when it matters and when I'm going to be a boss and I have to talk to people. No, it starts right now. It starts even if you're a student, even if you're at an early career stage. You need to learn the art of writing well, expressing your ideas, which then becomes a habit. So I think it's important to learn to do that. And it's not any profession specific. It doesn't just because you're a financial, you're a chartered accountant, or whether you are an engineer, you need communication. Every profession needs good writing skills. So whatever you learn through the course, I'm sure will help you. You know, it applies to all the courses across the careers that are out there. So learning to write a good having good communication skills is very important. So thank you, Peter, and over to you, James.
James, last word from you.
Yes, well, just as an aside over here, anybody going on any course through Regenesys automatically becomes part of the Regenesys family, which is a great and wonderful experience. We have students from 190 countries around the world at all levels making tremendous impact in the world. But the only way to become a really good writer is to write, to write, to write, to write. And so if that's what you need to do in your life, you'd better do something about it starting right now.
Excuse the pun. Thank you very much, James, Videhi, Santosh,
Thank you.
Cindy. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
And to our audience, thank you for joining with us. Take action, go and enroll in our course, and we'll see you there and look forward to interacting further. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a nice day, everybody. Bye-bye.